an entrepreneur, you are part of something great and bigger today. You know, there's a growing movement of leaders who want to see God's kingdom come in the marketplace. Thy kingdom come. So I lead the workplace network with One Way Ministries. I was in the corporate world for 25 years, and then about 4 years, God shifted my focus to a deeper mission, helping Christian leaders, especially in business, to see their work as a ministry. Some of them call it their business dream. I believe that every conversation, every decision, and every act of leadership is a chance to embody Christ, to be his hands, to be his feet and heart in our city. You know, we envision a city where, and I'm so happy with the guys from Cornwall, so I'm just going to include Cornwall in that conversation as well. But we envision our city or our cities where Christians in every workplace reflect the love and truth of Jesus, serving together in unity for the flourishing of our communities. And entrepreneurs, all of you are vital to that vision. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. A kingdom entrepreneur is more than just a business person with good values. They are a steward of God's call. They see their company not just as a vehicle for profit, but as a platform for transformation. A kingdom entrepreneur leads with purpose and with integrity, but also with faith and boldness. A kingdom entrepreneur sees every part of their business, if it's strategy, if it's hiring, if it's customer service, if it's product development, as a sacred ground. A kingdom entrepreneur understands that their work is worship and that their leadership is spiritual formation. A kingdom entrepreneur builds a culture that reflects Christ, one of generosity, of excellence, of justice, and of compassion. A kingdom entrepreneur believes in the power of unity with other faith-driven leaders to transform our city. And they don't do this alone. They disciple, they mentor, they pray with others. They dream impossible dreams, and they believe when Jesus says, if you have faith like a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move. Kingdom entrepreneurs aren't just solving business problems. They're solving spiritual and societal challenges, poverty, loneliness, homelessness, unemployment, fragmentation. They believe that God can use their business to bring hope and redemption into this world. That's why today matters. That's why it matters that you are here today. Because our city needs you. Our church needs you. And when pastors and entrepreneurs work together in unity, we move mountains. So today is about connection and it's about vision. You're going to hear from two incredible kingdom-minded leaders. And you'll connect with others who may be on that very same path as what you are. And you'll be invited to play a part in something bigger, a movement of business leaders advancing the gospel through their companies. Our first speaker is Colt Charlebois. Colt is a respected business strategist. He's a certified success coach and trainer of coaches who specializes in helping kingdom-minded entrepreneurs who align their businesses with their beliefs. After struggling with the same challenges many mission-driven business owners, he developed what he calls the kingdom-minded method. It's a framework that bridges the gap between spiritual disciplines and effective business strategy. As the founder of Kingdom Business Coaching, he has spent over 12 years guiding business owners to scale revenue without compromising what's important. He's a sought-after speaker, and he has presented internationally for organizations like KPMG, Success Magazine, EXP Realty, Keller Williams, Remax, and Leader Impact. And through this, he has reached hundreds of influential business leaders across multiple industries. He's also the founder of the Adam Men's Movement, a ministry dedicated to helping men discover their greater purpose in Christ and community. And at home, he cherishes his slow Saturdays riding bikes and racing Hot Wheels with his wife Amanda, who welcomed you as you came in, and his son Arlo. Please give a warm welcome to our speaker, Colt Charlebois.
We give it up for our host, Mr. Johan Vandermeer. All right, 3 weeks ago, I had a real wake-up call. My son Arlo comes running in the front door from the library with a new book. And he says, Dada, read this with me. And so I look down and see this book in his hands with these big block letters across the front of the book. They read survival. So this is interesting. And as we journeyed through the book, the pages were filled with these beautiful creatures, all of which would have one thing in common. What do you think that is? They were all facing extinction. So as we looked through the pages, Arlo kept saying to me, I like this one, Dada. I like this one. I like this one. Until he landed on the one page that he couldn't move on from. The one page above them all that had the Luzon peacock swallowtail. Okay. A butterfly found only in the island of Luzon in the Philippines. Now, if you met my wife or know anything about her family of origin, Arlo is 1/4 Filipino. Of course, this is probably more accurately what. Interesting. Okay. 1/4 Filipino, and it was fascinating to me how he could possibly have chosen the only animal in the book that was only found in his ancestral country of origin. You know what I mean? I found that to be a crazy thought, just that he picked that one thing. But for whatever reason, he wouldn't move on from that page. So what do you do as a father, right? What do you do in these moments where you don't know what to tell your child? Hey, Arlo, when you're older, probably won't be around. When you take your adventure trip someday to the Philippines and you're hiking through the mountain forest range of Luzon, this guy probably not going to be there. Is that what you tell him? I didn't know what to say. But ultimately, it got me thinking. And the coincidence was this: in that same week, an alarming statistic had been sent to me, alarming to me anyways, about how Canadian small business owners were also facing some extinction of sorts. It got me thinking about all the conversations that I have week to week with small business owners that are facing real threats, genuine threats. It might be financial threats, where they don't have enough to pay payroll at the end of the month. Expenses are high. It might be a threat to their mental health or even their physical health, where they might be facing a personal extinction of sorts. Sometimes I end up in conversations where someone might be facing a marital extinction because of the challenges they've had in business. Or worst of all, a crisis of faith. Ultimately, that's why, to me, it's very important that we gather here today. I love the opportunity to sit before a group like this, sit with a group like this, get you connected, because for me, you're some of my favorite people. Those that are on the front lines, those that are witnessing Jesus to the marketplace. You're doing some of the work that even those in full-time ministry can't do, right? You're meeting, sharing the gospel in certain ways, and ultimately being his light in the world. So it's important what you do. And, I'll use Glenn as an example, because, is he still here? Somewhere back there. He's a bad example to use then. Let's use Dr. Greg as an example. Greg, how long have you been in business? 32 years. So now people would see him and say, been a chiropractor, 32 years, got an established business. Greg, such is a business guy. He's had this business going for a while. But for him, he's not just a business guy. This is the platform that God gave him for ministry and impact. He sees his business as a way to care and meet the needs of others. And that's the same for everybody in this room here. So I want you to know that's the person you're sitting beside. So turn aside someone beside you and say, give them a high five and say, thank you for what you do. All right, today we're going to talk about a few things. One of the things I want to talk about is the reality of business extinction in Canada and the real threat that's occurring, what causes entrepreneurs to go extinct, and then I want to talk about 5 strategies that I've used as a business coach to help businesses scale and multiply, because it's not that complicated as long as you don't change directions every week. Anybody ever done that as an entrepreneur? So whether you're on a mountaintop or facing a cliff of potential extinction, I want you to know that there is a community that doesn't want to see that happen. They want to see you thrive, especially for those who say, I want to represent Jesus in all that I do. And so we're here to help with that in any way we can. So does that sound like a good plan, that we talk about 5 strategies to grow a business today? Is everybody good with that? Amazing. Won't go to that yet. It's been about 23 years now for me where I've been in business of sorts, and I want to say that the threat of extinction has happened more times than I wish to publicly admit. It's like after so many years, you think you should come to a place where it's not that bad anymore. You've kind of got a groove, but it seems like whenever you're chasing more, it's just all this stuff keeps pressing in all the time on you. And there's threats from every angle. So much so that I even said, God, if you're really with me, why does everything feel against me all of the time? Right? Why is it so difficult? The first threat that I faced was a financial one. This was in 2010. I'm 3 years into building, I was in real estate business at the time, trying to build a sales business up. And I mean, on the outside, I looked good. At least I think I did. You know, I was in my 20s. The world was my oyster. I had dippity-doo in my hair. I mean, those were good times. But the trouble was, I was so concerned about looking successful. So success on the outside was so important to me. And I thought that I was going to attract success. You know, it was the better I felt about myself, and what I talked to myself in the mirror about, the better I dressed, that success would somehow be drawn to me. And so I would really wanted to position myself amongst my friends too, because many of them were coming out of university at the time and they wanted to buy their first home at some point. So I aimed to look like someone that knew something about life and success. So you got to kind of fake it till you make it. Even if it meant using a credit card. The only trouble was my life had become a bit of a house of credit cards, and it was starting to crash down around me. But the foundation of that house, more importantly, was fear. Every morning I woke up like a bear named Visa was chasing me. And it was difficult because under that pressure, you make decisions, you compromise, you think differently about things. It wasn't just my poor relationship to money that was costing me. It was how the pressure distorted how I saw other people. Because I was in survival mode, I needed a client to get through the month. So every opportunity, whether it was a social exchange, a meeting, I was always looking at my calendar wondering, is this going to lead to a potential client or not? Is it worth my time? Anybody ever had to feel like that at any point in their business journey? So when I fell 2 months, then 3 months behind, the pressure really started building up. And I started asking God, like, do I even have what it takes to be in business? Or are you even capable of rescuing me from my own stupidity? Because it felt like I was making a lot of bad decisions a lot of the time. My response to that was interesting, though. This is where I chose to double down. Really, I became stricter, more rules. Right? How do I get up earlier, stay up later working on things? It's just pressure and do more calls, whatever it was. It wasn't helping. The thing that I was constantly fighting against was this voice inside of me. Under that pressure, when I looked in the mirror every morning and told myself, you got to make another sale today, it began to give me a bit of a funny odor, all right? something that everybody else could smell but me. And if you're in commission sales, you might have heard this before. But I got, yeah, you guessed it, Mo. He said, yes, I know what this is. He's talking about commission breath, right? I had commission breath, and everybody could smell it but me. Commission breath is the reaction that people give you when you show up with an overly eager or overly intense, overly urgent, overly tenacious tone, where you're putting pressure on people, and it's just not good. For me, I was probably more on the overly eager side. It was like a puppy dog, wanting to be pet. It's like, hey, please like me, like me, like me. And ultimately, it was based in one thing, and that's fear. The fear of failure and the fear of not being seen well by others. Those were driving forces that were corrupting me. And I would just stop there. Does anybody ever have a season as entrepreneurs where they felt that way? Where they were driven by fear and it was causing, maybe not commission breath for everybody, but causing some sort of awkward behavior. To me, I call this striving. Striving is the act of trying hard to do, reach, or achieve something in a manner that suggests it all rests on you. And I'm convinced that striving is the number one leading cause of business owner extinction. Ultimately thinking that it's all up to you. See, there's a place where the odds have been stacked against us so long that we're one carelessly tossed cigarette butt away from it all burning to the ground. And maybe like my story, it's a financial one. It's a financial threat that's closing in. Maybe you just have this mountain of debt that you say, I have no way of getting over this hill. Maybe it's health. Maybe you've been pushing so long, so hard, that it's starting to catch up with you. Early morning emails, waking up, who do I need to respond to, checking things before you go to bed, seeing what fires you need to put up first thing in the morning. And the doctor says, hey, everything's okay, you check out just fine, but on the inside, you know something majorly's off. What about marital extinction? Where the erosion of your mental state has made you, or has stolen your capacity to be compatible. You may be talking with your spouse, but you've never felt more alone in your life. Of course, there's sometimes we make bad decisions, and we're one moment away from reputation extinction, where we're wondering, when's the shoe going to drop? When are people going to find out what we did? So I would just say in an honest moment, if anybody has ever, at any point in their journey, faced an extinction like these, let's just raise a hand. If you've ever faced an extinction like that, I want you to hold them up for a minute because I want you to look around the room and just see that I'm pretty sure that almost every single hand is up. Thank you. See, in business, there's only one true guarantee. There's a lot of unknowns, but there's only one guarantee. At some point, you're going to be face to face with extinction. That's what the Bible calls the shadow of the valley of death. And there's a lot of biblical examples of this. We got Daniel in the den, Shadrach and the boys in the heat. I mean, Esther before the king, even Jesus himself before God saying, take this cup of suffering away from me. I want you to know that being a kingdom business owner, facing extinction is part of the process. It's inevitable. It's one of the reasons Jesus himself said, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world, here's a promise, you will have trouble. But take heart, bolster your heart, edify your heart. I have overcome the world. Is that a good thing? Yes. Anybody who thinks that's a good thing, say amen. Amen. Now, extinction isn't exclusive to just kingdom business owners. Anybody read Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth? Raise your hand. Okay. I expected more hands to go up. I recommend that you read Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, if you're in business. It really talks about systematizing things. Michael Gerber, if you haven't read the book, he talks about the percentages of business that fail at the beginning of the book. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to back that data up to see what is it like in Canada, right? So I looked up Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada, and they have some similar statistics. But they say in the first year as a business owner that 20% fail. By year 3 in Canada, we're looking at a 50 or 60% failure rate. By year 5, Michael Gerber suggested it's 80%. But the good news for Canadians is that by year 10, there's actually a 25 to 30% survival rate. So, odds are better than the US, but still not an easy game to go after. The other thing I found fascinating was that Canada's small business is actually in decline. So these numbers look at 2018 through 2022. The number is the year that it's reported in, so it's counting the year prior. But in 2023, we saw 115,000 businesses go away. Now, often there'd be about 20,000 new businesses come into Canada, about 20,000 go out. And so we kind of stayed around a break-even mark, but there's been a dramatic drop. And what we don't have is the stats for 2024 yet, but given that more pressure on inflation, I don't assume that they're going to be any better. This is the chart that really shocked me, though. The same week that Arlo brought in the survival book, I got this text message from a friend, an American of all people, who said, "Is this true in Canada?" Since COVID, before COVID, we'll say that self-employment was on par with public sector and private sector jobs. But since COVID, they've started declining, and the percentage change hasn't been great. What's interesting, though, is public jobs, there are many, many more of them, and many of us as entrepreneurs are competing in terms of trying to employ people who are getting government jobs. And I don't know a lot about the economy, or economics, I should say, but I would say, I don't know how we're going to pay for all these. If 50% of our GDP is through small businesses, this is a real problem. We're not heading in a great direction. All to say, this is putting more and more pressure on us as entrepreneurs. I couldn't imagine a country that we live in without us, without those that have struck out on their own to do something creative, to provide value in unique ways, to really serve. We certainly can't all work for the government, so something has to change. Ultimately, you hear these statistics and you say to yourself, well, what does that have to do with striving, Colt? Because you said the number one cause of these is striving. How do we know that Canadian business owners are really striving and trying to white-knuckle survival? Well, the answer is clear to me in the 2024 BDC report that came out that said 1 in 4 entrepreneurs in Canada reported that they are not doing well. This is about a mental state. This is what the survey was about. 1 in 4. So imagine 1/4 of this room are literally not doing well and not knowing who to talk to about it, not knowing how to work through it. The reason for that, number one, was work-life balance. They didn't know how to negotiate the two worlds. And frankly, I think we all can fall into that category. I don't want to ever seem above that one. That's a daily battle, but the difference is, are we in a mental state crisis because of it? The second one was inflation. That was the cause of them not doing well. And the third, very close, was cash flow and profitability. In my own case, being $100,000 in debt in my late 20s, the debt was just the tip of the iceberg. The striving, as I would call it, was costing me a lot. It was costing me perpetual singleness. I was trying to meet someone great and get married, but I was so busy working and so intense about it, there was no time. There was also a pending health crisis that would show up in my life a few years later. And for many of those years as a new Christian, trying to exemplify Christ in the marketplace, trying to do the right thing in a lot of scenarios, I found that I was stuck in like this shame-death spiral most of the time, because all that striving had put pressure on me in a way that, for the sake of this room and this audience, I'll just say that I was really stuck on the things that I found dependency in. So essentially, I was going extinct in all the ways that mattered most: my relationships, my health, my walk with God. But thankfully, with every dark cloud, there was a silver lining. I'll make this too gloomy. We spent a lot of time on the problem. I'm getting some serious stares here. It was that pressure that really helped me know who Christ was. Yeah. It was that opportunity where I fell on my knees and I said, God, are you for real? Like, do you really exist? And are you really in control? Can you really do something about my circumstances? Because at the time I had to move into a friend's basement. I owed $100,000 and I was trying to look successful with a dippity-doo in my hair. All I wanted to know was, could he get me out of this mess? And the great news was that despite all of my decisions, he kept meeting me. And the more I learned about Jesus, the more I started following him, there was a scripture that stood out above the rest. He says, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. This struck me. This really hit home. In fact, I call it banaka for my commission bread. Anybody remember banaka? Just me. All of my life focusing on who's a client that could potentially lead to a commission was costing my ability to see people and really genuinely connect with their needs. Wouldn't you believe it that as I started applying this and I started just serving people, started getting around them and finding out how can I really lift this person up, not worried about the outcome, not worried about my time and whether I was going to survive or not, sales started coming in. So in that season where I needed sales most, they started showing up. I learned something about sales, and I talk about sales a lot because it's one of the places in most businesses that, especially when you're a giver by nature, you want to just help people, it can be very awkward to do sales. It feels like you're trying to take something a lot of the time. That's not the case. Sales wasn't about convincing people to like me as I thought it was, but rather understanding the problem people face. It wasn't even about building relationships. I want you to hear me clearly on this because the intention of the sale wasn't that I would know them and we would build a relationship. That can be a very normal outcome. But the intention was to go and just understand where this person is at and how I can be of service and of help. So the message ultimately was clear to me. When I am inwardly focused on me, focused on how I'm perceived, whether or not I'm an imposter, all these crazy voices I have, I've made it all about me and it means I'm imploding. But when I'm outwardly focused, when I get obsessive about what's going on in your world, what's going on in Ken's world, what's going on in John's world, I expand. I feel bigger than life. I don't even know that I'm part of the equation because you're taking so much of my focus. That's how I learned to overcome even my fears of rejection and what people thought of me. It's no wonder I had a difficulty making sales calls and doing this kind of thing. So when you live from this posture, what I've found to be true is that even sales felt like ministry work. Sometimes I'd be sitting in front of someone that led to a transaction, but more often than not, it was an opportunity to listen and pray. Whether it was internally, sometimes God would open up an opportunity where I could pray externally for someone. It made business fun. I feel like that's the posture I want to tap into this morning, so that we don't ever have to worry about our extinction. We can worry about just the person God has in front of us and what we can do to help them. So over time, as I've worked in coaching for the last 12, 13 years, this became a little bit clearer. I've come up with what I've called the kingdom mindset method, and it has 5 components to it. To really harness and walk in the kingdom mindset, we first have to address our pace. Are we walking at the pace God has called us to? For some of us, we need to go a little faster. But for most of us, I'm going to promise you probably need to slow down and not run ahead of where God's plans are. What about direction? Are we seeking Him for direction? Or are we just doing business and doing it in His name? Saying, hey, I love God and I'm just about business. Once we have the direction from the Lord, we can have strategy. Understand, what does this look like? And I'm going to talk about those 5 strategies that I've seen most effective in a moment. But once you've got the strategy down pat, how do we invite people into this process through leadership? Invite them into a greater vision. And then last but not least, and probably the most important of all of them, is our identity. Are we truly walking in a way that God has called us to walk? That we know who we are, and we're not looking for validation or affirmation or acceptance from anybody that we come in contact with. It's unnecessary when we see ourselves as a child of God. So, of all of these, I want you to have the most kind of bang for buck. We're going to talk to you about strategy today. Before we do, I do want you to know that Philip and I are hosting a 2-day event. I want to bring it up now because there's one limited space, but it's coming up soon. June. That's Philip's looking at me. June, Colt. June 19th and 20th. We're going to have a 2-day workshop where we can go deeper into the strategies of doubling your business and doing it through a redemptive framework. So if you want to grab a picture of the QR code, you can do that now. I will post it at the end again. We probably have space for about 15 people at this event. We really want to slow down and walk together in this and help you establish something that's going to be fruitful in your business. So, come back to it in a moment if you need. Let's talk about strategy. In 1 Kings chapter 19, Elijah's on the run from Jezebel, and he gets weary. Thankfully, God provides him a few meals and refreshes him for 40 days of mountaineering. Not a bad strategy. But in verse 11, the Lord says to him, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." This tells us we need to be in position because the Lord's on the move. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Does this strike you as interesting, this scripture? When the wind threatens to blow your house down, I'm reading a lot of little kids' books if you can't tell. When the earth shakes around you and challenges everything you found stability in, or when fire starts consuming all of what you created, I want you to do this. Ignore the chaos and wait for the whisper. If we act like a secular business person, you're going to get results like a secular business person. But if you walk with God, you have this innate ability to get before him and hear his voice. So when all of the noise and all of the wind and all of the fire and all the earthquakes start rumbling around you, Elijah was wise enough to just get still and wait for the whisper. He didn't sense God in any of those, and nor should we. I bring this up before the strategies because this could easily be another to-do for you, and it's the last thing you need. What you need is not just another strategy. You need wisdom from the Lord to know what is the thing I'm supposed to do in this season. How do I deploy this? So as you're hearing these, I want you just to tap in inwardly and say, Lord, what's for me in this? If anything at all. Do you have a plan for me? Should I be listening intently to one over another? Doubling your business means a few different things to a few different people. So let's just clarify what that means. The first and most obvious is revenue, right? We want to scale revenue, simple way to double the business. Once you've got revenue in the door, we want to talk about profitability. That's probably a more effective way to double a business is to say, hey, I'm taking home twice as many profits in the same amount of sales. The one that's not as obvious and probably most prevalent to many of us, though, is time. Time is the greatest way. Once you've got enough sales in the door, business is thriving. How about a strategy to do just as much business in half of the time, giving you more margin for your family, for your health, for what matters most, for ministry, for serving the church? So when we talk about doubling the business, I want you to be clear that it's not just revenue. So 5 strategies. Number 1 is the volume focus. What this is about is simply meeting more clients. This is especially important for a new business. You want to be in conversations, and a lot of them. I think one of the reasons I see new businesses fail is because there's little activity. They're not actually engaging potential clients or people that could lead them to potential clients. Most of the work I do is, I say all of the work I do is with service-based businesses, typically high-ticket items. So wealth planning, accounting, real estate, marketing, this kind of exchange. So all of the stuff I'm sharing has little to do with manufacturing. Anybody in manufacturing in the room? Anybody in product? Okay. There are some retail sales though, I know that. Volume focus is critical for a new business because we need conversations so we can be testing the theory. Now, as a kingdom-minded entrepreneur, most of you are givers, meaning you love serving people and it feels very awkward to ask. A little strategy on this is to do something I call naming your process. This is where, instead of saying, hey, come work with me, I'm a realtor, you create a process that you can talk about with excitement. Because it's not going to be exciting to just boast about yourself, ever, as a believer. So name your process and say, I have the ABC sold plan, and I'd love to talk to you about it. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I'd love to get your opinion on it and see who it might be relevant for. I'd love to serve somebody with it this week. Does that make sense? We can name a process and get pretty excited about talking about that. So in the volume focus, I'm going to use an example from a client. So I've worked with this company. So John O's in the room. John O's at the back of the room there. Next Door Photos is the name of the company. I've worked with them for the past 2.5 years. It's been phenomenal. And this year they did an interesting project at the beginning of the year. Next Door Photos is the largest real estate media capture company in North America. So it operates somewhat like a franchise. They have locations in many different cities, and you buy into the process, you become a local owner, and they help you get launched. The issue they were having was that a lot of the new locations, they weren't getting the business they need. And in that industry, there's a lot of realtors. We don't know half the time who's doing how many sales. It's very difficult to go about getting business. So we had to have them increase the amount of people they were speaking to. So we created a call accelerator, and there's a coaching tip in here that I want to get to. In 12 weeks, with 27 individuals, they did over 36,000 calls. And you say, how is that possible? That's a lot of calls. Ultimately, we did it by creating an environment. See, if you're a solopreneur or you run a team, I want you to catch this principle about creating an environment. You make it so that it's awkward not to show up. It's like saying, hey, I got a gym membership, I want to get in shape. It's one thing to get the gym membership. Another thing, to have someone that you respect, you look up to. It doesn't have to cost you anything, like a personal trainer, but that you know is going to be there every day. And you say, hey, I'm going to meet you there. And so your integrity will show up unless there's something dire happening, but you'll show up just because you're going to be meeting someone there. So you create these environments which produce the results, so that on the rainy days or the days you don't feel like doing it, you're like, ah, people I like are going to be there, and they're expecting me to be there too, so I'm just going to show up and do the work anyways. So that's volume focus, and that's one of the ways that we help businesses grow and multiply. Does that make sense? Yes. Raise your hand if you think, hey, I probably need to do a little bit more volume in this season. More conversations. Okay, about a quarter of the room. I just want to grab a little poll there. The next one is the duplication focus. Once you've got your pricing structure sorted out, once you know what your service is, you've tested it, you've had enough at-bats with it, you may start considering building a sales team. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but duplication is about expanding your team. It's about creating an environment where others are doing some of the sales work and not just yourself. This takes planning. I want to say that again because I see a lot of businesses get into trouble when they start to multiply their efforts in sales. Namely, if the owner of the business was the one doing all of the sales work and now they need to bring somebody else in, they typically hire someone that they like and is willing to do the work. Has anybody made a hire like that? I made several, so a couple of head nods. That's not how you get a great salesperson. I want to tell you a bad story and then give you a good tip if that's okay. I got hired in 2022 by a company called Success Magazine. Success is a really interesting brand. You might have seen it on the shelves. It's a 127-year-old legacy brand. And at the time, they wanted to develop a coaching company. And so they hired none other than Mr. Tony Robbins' son, Jared Robbins, as the president. And so only by circumstances that God could make, I certainly didn't earn this by any respect, but a friend in Ottawa, Mr. Jeff Hooper, introduces me to Jared Robbins. And I meet him, and he hires me on as one of the coaches. Shortly after that, I got promoted to being one of the trainers of all the coaches, and then eventually a lead trainer at the organization. And so there was 4 trainers, and I was one of them. And because of Jared's background, he was great at getting people certified in coaching. So that's what we did. We certified over 150 coaches in a little over a year, training them up in their coaching skills. And it was exciting, it was dynamic. There was only one major problem, is that we had a lot of coaches and no what? Clients. Yeah, what a bad situation to be in, right? They hadn't really understood the mechanics of how to get coaching clients, and they just kept producing coaches. So this didn't last long. About a year and a half after I came in, a new CEO with a whole bunch of new ideas came in and cut the whole coaching department. So 150 coaches certified, everybody's got new life skills, but nobody's got any coaching clients. Bad story. You don't want that. It takes proper planning when you're scaling to understand, how do I get the right type of person that's going to bring in business? They don't always have to be employees. You can have ambassadors that do this for you, just a side note. A better tip. Has anybody heard of the name Chet Holmes? Ken? I expected that, Ken. Anybody else? He wrote a book called The Sales Machine, and he was known in Fortune 500 companies. Chet Holmes has passed away now, but he was known in the Fortune 500 companies of his day as like the go-to guy for building sales teams, all right? So he knew a thing or two about sales. And in a podcast interview before he passed away, I got to hear what I believe to be one of the greatest tips for hiring a salesperson. So if this is something you ever plan on doing or you're in the midst of, hear this out. He would put an ad out in the paper, back then that's how they did it, and it was a classified ad that just said, let's use real estate as an example, a couple of realtors in the room. Realtors wanted, average realtors make $60,000. Great realtors make $90,000. Rock stars make $150,000. If you're a rock star, which is the term that he liked, apply within. So of course, all kinds, oodles of people would start applying within, and Chet would get on the phone with them and he would ask them one question rather than going through the whole resume, doing an extensive interview process. I mean, that's very draining when you're hiring someone, going through all the resumes and talking to everybody for an hour or two. Chet would ask him one question. He'd say, Tyler, what makes you a rock star? And no matter what reply he gets, no matter what, he always had the same answer. He said, can I be candid with you? Tyler, I'm not hearing rock star. I'm going to end the interview now. Why would he say that?
Because he wants him to sell them.
Rock stars don't give up.
Ken says rock stars don't give up. He had been in so many environments. He knew one fundamental truth was that there were good salespeople, and then there were some that excelled, and the margin was huge. What the difference between a good salesperson and someone that was just able to communicate with masses of people, able to influence in a very unique way. It was a huge margin, and there was one unique differentiator: their ability to handle rejection. He knew that if rejection had no sticking factor on them, that this person could be great. They could learn all of the rest. So all he was interested in doing was testing their ability to move past rejection. So you don't have to use the word rock star. You can use something else, but I would suggest that you deploy this if you're looking for a salesperson at some point. You want to test their ability to move through resistance. So here's what Chet Holmes found as he did this. 19 out of 20 people would get on the call, they receive the rejection, and then they would apologize. Much like we would probably do as Canadians. Okay, I'm sorry, thank you. Well, good luck with your interview. I hope you find the right person. He said, but there's that one. Everybody say one. So let's do it with a little more energy, like we're enthusiasts in sales in the room. Everybody say one. One. And there was the one, okay? The one who would come up and say, what are you talking about? I just told you I was valedictorian, captain of the football team, whatever it was. They might come with ego, which is helpful in sales, despite, poor spiritual practice. The other side of it is they might come with strategy and curiosity, but they wouldn't let go. So as you're interviewing, find a way that you can see someone's ability to move through resistance. Does that make sense? All right. Just by the way, show of hands, who's in a place where they want to grow in sales and they're looking at salespeople or they have a sales team currently? Okay. About 20%. Then we have the niche focus. This is one of the techniques that I'm going to spend a little more time on. This is where I've gotten some of the most fruit, is taking the time to slow down and understand who you've done business with. Once you know your top 20%, Charles is nodding back there because we've done some of this work together. Once you know your top 20%, and I mean know them, I mean understand the way they think, the decisions they make, the challenges they have, you can start to build a perfect client avatar around them. Have you ever heard of the name Wilfredo Pareto? Ken?
80-20.
More people know this one, Ken. It's good. We're not alone in this one. Yes, you might know him for the economic term that he was named after, Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. This crosses a lot of boundaries in a lot of different areas, but ultimately in business, it means oftentimes that 80% of your revenue comes from what? 20% of your clients, exactly. So I have this exercise I call Finding Moby, and I affectionately call it after the book Moby Dick. If anybody's ever read that book, I won't get a raise of hands on that one because it's a beast. But ultimately, this old piece of literature, there's a character named Captain Ahab, and this gentleman is fixated on finding a white whale. He wants to get this whale, he wants revenge, and he'll do anything to find it. The principle I pull from this book personally is that, in business, there's often I want a whale client, one client that's going to be really great and service a lot of the needs of our growth. White whales aren't a bad thing. It's my metaphor for perfect clients. And it's not bad to hunt them. Well, we started with survival, so maybe we should say, save the whales. It's not bad to find them and to observe them. How's that? But ultimately, you don't want to sink the ship in the process. In Captain Ahab's terms, he got monomaniacal. That's a famous term from the book. So fixated that he couldn't see anything else. When you're looking for your perfect clients, I don't want you to end up striving in the process. To do this, we look through what I call three, what do they call them? Monoculars? The singular lens, we don't see those much. Monoculars. To find the top 20%, this is how we do it. The first one is pretty straightforward and obvious. When I'm looking back, ROI, who brought in the most revenue as a client? It's pretty straightforward. But quickly, we want to cross-reference that with the second one, return on time. How much time is this? Maybe you had a client last year that you earned $20,000 off of. That's great, but not so great if it took you 20,000 hours, right? Not a great client. So we want to look at what is the intersection between the return on income and the return on time. But then the last one that people that don't focus on very often is what I call return on energy. You are your business. Your business is you. Whether you're at the front lines of it or not, everything in your operation is going to reflect who you are. If you're not thrilled to show up to that operation every day, there's a problem that needs to be fixed. And a lot of the times we can zero in right here and find out, who do I just love to serve? Who do I like to be around? And it's usually there's a client or two or a client type that's really draining the batteries. And you're starting to paint the hole and saying, I don't know if I want to be in this business anymore. So by doing an exercise like this, we can start to evaluate, hey, who am I in business? Who do I really feel called to serve? Does that make sense? I'll use Diana as an example here because we spent some time going through this together, did we not? And maybe in just a sentence or two, what did this do for you? Because you had been in business a long time, you had built a really thriving practice.
Yeah, so I'm a public accountant, and when I was young, trying to grow the business, every client was a good client, right?
Yeah.
And then you slowly learn over time that, like you said, some of those clients are just a lot of mental drain. They're just not fun to work with. They're last minute. Everything's urgent. Fee sensitive. Don't listen to advice. So I just went through a period of, parting ways with clients that weren't a great fit, and it made capacity to be able to work with the clients that really value what we can do and do more business advisory, not just tax and accounting. And I enjoy my work way more, and it's financially rewarding, and it's just made me love my job again.
And are you working more hours or less hours than you used to?
Less hours.
So you're working less hours and your income has gone up and you enjoy your clients more?
Yep.
That's a pretty good deal, right? You give Diana a clap. Diana's one of the partners at an accounting firm called McKay Duff, and coincidentally, their office is just down the hall. I didn't know that when I booked the space, and Diana's like, you're literally on our floor, Colt. So really fun to find that out. So next we have efficiency focus. Once you know your top 20%, I just want to say this, once you're established, once you have a network, you've been around more than a couple years, cold calling is kind of for the birds, all right? Cold calling is a really good way to get started. I say for the morning birds, because it's good that the birds cold call in the morning. Warms us all up in the morning, warms our hearts. But we want to get more strategic because you start to get the pressure on time here. So for efficiency focus, what you're doing is asking for introductions. This is what I call the trusted influencer strategy. The trusted influencer strategy, if you had not worked through this with a few people in the room, the idea behind the trusted influencer strategy is to find out someone who is trusted and influential. And get this, it doesn't have to be by the masses. What it needs to be is with your perfect client. So they don't have to have a huge Instagram following or be on TikTok or anything like that. They just have to be known amongst a community of people that you would serve very well with your business. And how the trusted influencer strategy works is simple. You call someone that you have rapport with and a great relationship with, and you ask them if they would be willing to make an introduction for you. It's that simple. What it does is it cuts through the wall, the invisible wall of resistance that every single one of us has in the room, even as good-hearted, kingdom-minded Christian business owners. We still have a wall. When someone calls us, asking us questions, seeming like they want to do business with us, right away, what do? You know, the resistance starts to come in. Who are you? What do you want? Why should we get together? When you have someone who's trusted between the two parties introduce you, all of that's gone because you get to ride the wave of credibility that they have. So if, Glenn and Ken, I wanted to meet Ken, I would call Glenn and say, Glenn, who do you know? I'm looking for a guy like Ken. He would say, well, Colt, you should probably talk to Ken. So then he would reach out and introduce us both. So now, depending on the relationship that Ken has with Glenn, is going to be the amount of credibility that I come in with. If he sees him as someone that he really admires and respects, he's going to be much more open to meeting with me. And now if he sees someone that is a little bit of a stretch for him, he doesn't really know that well, he's going to be more open than he would if I called him directly. But ultimately, you're going to ride whatever wave of credibility that person has. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Amazing. This is a much better approach, and it's why it's the efficiency focus. The last one is the productivity focus. What this means is go big. Again, these are strategies that I'll deploy with clients in different seasons for different reasons. Going big is about selling once to deliver often. This takes some thought and creativity to know how to do this. Easiest way to explain this is probably going back to the example of next door photos. There are a lot of real estate agents in any one given marketplace, and it's very difficult to find out who to connect with. So what a lot of the locations would do is they would go to real estate brokerages and they would create a specific deal with them. Once they secure the deal, they might offer a discount to all the agents in that brokerage because they've created a strategic relationship. Or they might show the brokerage that if they pay for the photos, that they can use it as a recruiting tool. Okay? So ultimately, either way, what this does is it circumvents them having to brand themselves. It's like fishing in the ocean with a line versus standing in the stream with a net. Right? It's a huge piece, and the play is positioning. So that's the key word of this is positioning, not branding. You become known simply because of the position you've been put in through the relationship. I'll give you another example of this. Again, we have a few realtors in the room. Picture a family law office, all right? What differentiates this from a a trusted influencer? A trusted influencer would be a lawyer that says, anytime I get a divorce case or we have to, sell a property or two, I'll let you know about them. That's trusted influencer. The strategic partnership, where you're in the productivity focus, is that you have an arrangement with them where you're part of their process. So a couple comes in, they need an evaluation on the home, you get the call every time because you form this relationship. Especially if you're both kingdom-minded entrepreneurs, because this is a chance for ministry. This is a chance to show up in a very difficult circumstance, and you're raising your hand, say, I want to be part of that process because I really have a heart, I feel a calling to these types of individuals. So you become part of their process, and ultimately you start getting the calls. So this is kind of a sell once, deliver often mentality. Last but not least, we've covered 5 strategies now that you could use to deploy your business. The one strategy that I did not include in my top 5 list is the marketing focus. Reason being is that you will hear this preached from the bellows of the internet till the end of either time or the internet, whatever comes first. Marketing is not the best way to grow a business. Okay? So I'm going to put a big X through this for you. I don't want you to think marketing until you understand the others. I'll tell you why. It's kind of the issue with our politics, is that politically, we have leaders who form their identity and their platforms around what they believe the people want. So if you take this to the business aspect, and you've spent the years really getting in front of your top 20%, really getting in front of people that you feel God has called you to serve. You start getting creative in how you serve them. Only then, once you know that fundamentally, would you ever want to consider becoming an authority for your audience. If not, it's going to be very confusing. And I've personally seen businesses spend hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to define themselves and trying to reach a people group that they don't even know they want to serve. And it's a big mechanism and an ecosystem that half the time they don't want to keep up with. So I'd recommend you keeping this for a distant last. Most times, when businesses fully deploy some of the other strategies, there's no need for marketing. They've got a huge ecosystem and you've never even heard of them publicly, but they've done business with all of their types of people. So raise your hand if you agree with that last point, the marketing piece. I didn't expect everybody to, but a few in the room have. So that was a lot of information, Colt. Where do you start? Where do you start with all this? My recommendation for the vast majority is, if you're in a season where you want to grow the business and you're willing to put some time in and plan it, without having to sit down with a coach, the very first place to start is to look at your client list. I would start with a niche focus, really document, I'm saying this specifically, write down everything you can. You can use ChatGPT for this. Ask it to give you prompts. Start building the profile. Start understanding the challenges that your top 20% make. Create avatar names for them so that when you meet them, we're like, oh, this is a so-and-so, like my perfect avatar. And then once you've done that, you want to deploy the trusted influencer strategy, where you're leveraging the relationships that you've spent years forming to get introductions. And now, if you have something, in the internet world, they call it an IFO, an initial free offering. If you have something that is a free gift, much like this event is. Now, I don't plan it, the point of this event is not to try and do business with everybody in the room, but every time I run one of these, coincidentally, somebody comes to me afterwards and says, hey, I'd like to know more. And so I know, as a believer, and I'm saying this because I want you to do the same, give something that serves people, where they can form relationships, connection, get wisdom, get advice, whatever it is. It could be a free strategy call. Give something that serves people, knowing that God will highlight who you're supposed to work with. It's so much easier and so much more weightless. So that would be my advice. An exercise for you. How are we doing? Coming up on time here. I want you to write down a one-sentence description. If you have a phone or a piece of paper, you can do this now. This description includes the person you serve and how you serve them. The person you serve and how you serve them. This can take a while to really craft in its most eloquent sense, but all of you already have a version of this now. Intuitively, it's how you probably introduce yourself at a lot of events like this, right? What do you do? But I'd rather you form it in terms of the person you serve and how you serve them. So I'm going to show you mine just so that you have an example of something. I help kingdom-minded business owners. So for me, there's lots of business owners out there. I really feel called to those who just carry a passion for wanting to bring Jesus to others. So I help them do something specific, unlock potential in their sales force. That means a lot of different things. They might be starting the first sales team. They might never have led salespeople. Maybe they've done really well and they want someone to duplicate their efforts. Or maybe they have a commissioned sales force. Ultimately, I'm using coaching skill sets that I've learned and coached others through and passing those on to the leader so that they can unlock potential where they didn't know possible. As leaders, we tend to be really good at training and guiding and leading one type of person. People that are most like us. But there's a lot of different behavioral styles out there. And so when you learn coaching skill sets, you can pass it on. So this is what so I want you to take your version of this now. And I want you just to take a minute and share it with the person beside you. And in fact, share it with the person on the other side of you too. So if you're not sitting beside anybody, maybe just hop over a seat. But just take a moment and share who you serve and how you serve them. You can do this now. This is a little exercise for you. Anybody on their own? Anybody on their own can come up to the front here. You never talk to them. All right, another minute. Start finishing up. All right, give your neighbor a high five and say, "Good to meet you. Good to know you." So once you've got this line sorted out, what you do and who you help, pretty straightforward. I want to just show you how you can use it. And if we have time at the end, after Philip has done his presentation, his inspiring talk, maybe we'll spend some time. I would love for some of you to know each other better. So just to give you an example of this, I'll use Ken as the example. Ken, can I ask you for a favor?
Sure.
Would you be open to introducing me to someone? I'd love to know, who do you know? This is the key word, who do you know? Not do you know. Who do you know that you would consider a kingdom-minded business owner? Someone who just loves the Lord, wants to make an impact, sees their business as a vehicle for God to use them. Who comes to mind?
Who comes to mind? Suzanne Hart.
Okay, Suzanne. I would love to help Suzanne in any way that would be fitting. Would you be open to making an introduction for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think Suzanne would prefer like email or text message? What kind of communication does she prefer?
Usually she responds to text message better.
Okay, see, it's a good question to note that. Last thing I have is there any compliment that you pay to Suzanne?
Yeah, she's a mindset mastery mentor.
Okay.
And very, very skilled at what she does.
Oh, wow. Inspiring. So that's going to be the first thing I say to her when we do get introduced, is that just Ken tells me you're incredible at mindset mastery and very skilled at it. And just to form a relationship. So thank you so much. I would genuinely love to meet her. But that's as simple as it has to be.
You will on Thursday.
I will on Thursday. Ken and I were just chatting, and ironically, I'm talking about Chet Holmes, which is not a very common name. As we know, Ken was the only person who knew of him in the room before he passed. Ken's running an event next week where Chet Holmes' daughter is coming to Ottawa to host a full-day seminar. So if you're interested, you can talk to Ken afterwards. But I thought that was too ironic not to share. All right. Let's just do a recap. We talked about 5 ways to double a business. Number 1, we focused in on the volume approach, where it's just about activity, it's about getting out there. And then we talked about the duplication approach, where you're bringing salespeople on to grow your business. And of course, we talked about the niche approach, where we're understanding who is our top 20% and what are the characteristics that make them up. And of course, the productivity approach was about, efficiency approach down at the bottom was about how do I know more of them? How do I get to meet more of them? Who in my network can introduce me in a way that I can serve more people? And then, of course, the last but not least was the productivity approach. Go big, sell once, deliver often. All of these are part of the 5 pillars of a kingdom mindset. We've only gone partway into strategy, so I do want you to know it is very important to harness these other methodologies. Pace. One of the biggest challenges kingdom entrepreneurs, kingdom-minded entrepreneurs, they look at the Sabbath like it's a suggestion, and not actually a time where they posture themselves looking back over the last 6 days and looking for evidence of God. It is good, it is good, it is good, it is good. Your brain, scientifically proven, is going to find negative thoughts faster, meaning they're more accessible than positive thoughts. That's why God in His Word has trained us to focus on what is good. Only then do we want to turn and look at the week ahead of us, because we're always trying to solve the next problem is what wears us out. So understanding pace and understanding direction. When have we gotten before God, fasted, prayed, asked Him, what is your will for me? What is your direction? Knowing that He might speak, you might hear His voice, or He might just create circumstances to draw you towards it. But either way, then we can start praying through a strategy and which of these methodologies might work best for me. And of course, at some point, we want to bring others into the process, because even if you're a solopreneur and intend to be a solopreneur your whole career, I'm going to tell you, at some point, you'll reach a plateau where it's not exciting anymore. And you'll want to shift laterally and just start doing something else. I'm going to tell you, that's the time you got to start pouring into others. That's the latest, very latest time you want to start. But ultimately, if this journey has been solo for a long time, you want to start pouring into others where you'll get your greatest fulfillment. Identity, last but not least, most important, to walk as an heir and not an error. When you wake up in the morning thinking that you're an imposter, that who am I to go for this client or be talking to this person, you're thinking like an error, like you're not supposed to be here. But we know God has created you for a reason, a purpose, a timeline, a place in our city. And so to operate as an heir is to say, my dad is the king. I don't have everything he has. But I know that I'm going to have it as I need it. And you can walk into every environment knowing that, hey, my dad's got me. He's the king. He's got it all taken care of. And from that posture, things change, conversations change. You don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to make it, because you know you've been called, you've prayed through it, you've got confirmation on it. You know that the storms, the earthquakes, the wind, the fire, none of that matters. It's about the gentle whisper that can carry you on. Since we won't go through a lot of these, I would open up and say I would be delighted to spend time, a strategy call, a conversation to help you seek the Holy Spirit in your business. No questions asked. If you want to do that, you want to have a call with me, I'd be wide open to it. I certainly couldn't have a call with everybody, and I don't expect everybody would want one, but I'd be happy to meet with a few of you to do that as time permits. But for the most part, the best place to go deeper on this is not in a one-off call. Is to get together in the group and come to the Redemptive Business Studio, where Philip and I are going to spend 2 days connecting you with other kingdom-minded entrepreneurs to draw out a strategy, first and foremost, so that you can find more perfect clients. I want you to leave that place with more perfect clients. You're going to have a succinct strategy, scripts, conversations on how to do that, and then you're going to start building the network that will introduce you. So go ahead, take a picture of the QR code or write down redemptivestudio.com. I believe, .ca, look at that. Thank you, Philip. .com will lead you nowhere, but .ca.
It says your QR code goes to .com.
Oh, well. I think is it bringing you to an actual site?
You want me to?
It was tested, so. Now.
.com works.
Okay, it is .com. Philip has so many URLs that he's lost track of the .coms and .cas, but he did give us a .com. Philip is from Tyndale. He'll be coming up in a moment, but before he does, I'll hand it back to Johan. I just want to say this. So typically when Tyndale does an event, we can expect a price point of about $1,500 for something like this, but this is actually the first time that One Way Ministries and Tyndale and Colt Charlebois have partnered up to do an event. So we're hosting it for $9.95, and because you're here, we get the super early bird price until Monday. It'll be a $6.95. So that's as good as it gets. It doesn't get any better than that. That's less than half price for our Kingdom folks. This is as much as we can give. And again, 15 people is what we're looking at in the room there. So feel free to apply within. But in closing, let's go to James 4. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You desire, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. Or you quarrel and fight within yourself. You do not have because you do not ask God. When you ask, you do not receive, because you ask with the wrong motives. What you may spend on getting, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world, trying to be liked by everyone, means enmity with God? I read that and I think, what does he think of Facebook and likes? Very interesting. Therefore, anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. Or do you think Scripture says, without reason, that he jealously longs for the Spirit he has caused to dwell in us? But he gives us more grace. That is why Scripture says, God opposes the proud. When you think of proud, don't just think ego, think of anybody who's focused internally. If you think poorly of yourself, that's acting in pride. If you think highly of yourself, that's acting in pride. God opposes those who are focused on themselves but show favor on the humble, those who are focused outwardly. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. That includes resisting the temptations for the pleasures of the world. Come near to God and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Double-minded being those who want to serve the world, be liked by the world, want to serve God. Grieve, mourn, wail, change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves. Focus on others before the Lord, and he will lift you up. When I started thinking of myself less, not thinking less of myself, when I started thinking of myself less, the definition of humility, and really obsessing over the needs of those that I met, those who were put in front of me, I felt like overnight I started meeting great clients. And it's not because I was hustling harder, but because I was serving from a place of security, knowing who I was and who I was called to serve. I wasn't striving from that place of scarcity. And I believe the same is true for you. Whether you're in a season where your business is thriving, or it's a little bit on life support. These are regular cadences as a growth business, by the way. When you find a potential client, or even an employee, or even a peer, maybe even a spouse or your child, and they're facing the feeling that they're going to go extinct in one way, shape, or form, I want you to take the time and slow down. I want you to seek God. Ask him, even if it's internally in that moment, Lord, how can I serve this individual? I want you to lock in on helping them. Commit to them. Walk them through the valley of the shadow of extinction. If you do that, I can say with confidence that you'll be serving from a place of security, and that you'll multiply in more ways than you ever thought possible. This is easier said than done, so I want to close in prayer. And just say, Heavenly Father, thank you as kingdom-minded business owners that you've called us to a great opportunity to serve you in this capacity. Thank you for the knowledge and understanding that our lives have died and that they have been risen again in you, Jesus. It feels so confusing most days to navigate all the needs of this world. But Lord, despite what the enemy whispers, I pray that your voice would become louder for all of us. That as pressure comes on us with politics, inflation, all these external factors, that your whisper would become more clearly. And that in this next season, that you would raise up those that you've appointed to become leaders among men and women give us a voice, but never one greater than our character can sustain. I pray for divine connections from this group today and divine inspiration to follow in the days ahead. We pray a blessing on each and every one of your souls here, each and every one of your children, in fact. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much, Colt. Let's give Colt a hand. I especially remember that part going forward, Colt. Wait for the whisper, ignore the chaos. That was really good. And yeah, I'm a real sucker for the tasting stations at Costco. So I'm going to tell my wife next time I'm just going for an IFO. So.
Chicken on a stick from Costco.
Philip to you. Philip is the founding director of the Center for Redemptive Entrepreneurship at Tyndale University, where he equips Christian entrepreneurs to become culture-shaping catalysts. He's also the co-founder of two social enterprises, Clink Coffee. I know somebody that you need to speak with, Philip. That's also into coffee, and Red Propeller, which provide meaningful employment for people with barriers to the workforce. Philip's journey combines innovation, ministry, creativity, and leadership. And his talk, Reimagine Your Company's Purpose Through a Redemptive Lens, will challenge us to think differently, not just about what we build, but why and how we build it. Let's welcome Philip Yan.
Hello everyone, so glad to be here, so glad to meet many of you. And I heard that Colt actually meet most of you, many of you are Colt's friends, so thank you for coming to support him. And I'm actually getting the influencer to help me.
Influencer, yeah.
So let me ask you a question. How many of you have a business right now? Oh, that actually including you are operator of a nonprofit. So raise a hand. Wonderful. How many of you are on a journey to create one right now? Great to see you. How many of you thinking about one day I'm going to do that? Good for you. That's the dream. Keep dreaming. I want to take you to 3 different events to start. It was 2007, a guy with the black shirts, turtleneck, blue jeans came out, Steve Jobs, in 2007, and point to one thing, a device, the phone that he called a smartphone. That is first versions of the iPhone. That was really how many years ago? 18 years ago. He said, today Apple's going to reinvent the phone. But what he really did was not only about reinventing the phone. He inventing a new norm, new lifestyle, the completely different living patterns that you and I cannot live without. How many of you not using any smartphones right now? Really? The one product that he created changed the world. 1963, Martin Luther King came out and make that statement to say, I have a dream. The dream that he had is not only about changing the law, making the things more livable, is not solving some basic issues that we faced in the society at the time. But fundamentally, ever since, his dream is changing the way that we see the world. That his dream was saying that one day, the slave and the slave master, the kids, the descendant will sit next to each other, care for each other, support each other. It's a new dream. It's a new set of thinking. And that transformed the way that we see life today. Over 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ started his ministry. And he went to the temple and he opened a scroll. And he read the scripture. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. Today, this scripture is fulfilled." That statement, that presentation changed the entire world. You and I sitting here, you and I can pray together. You and I have all these conversations today because of that declaration. That one statement changed the whole world. So be careful about what we're inventing, what we're creating, because it might change the world. So what if Jesus' declaration today, it means something to you? What if your business today, it meant to carry the same vision that Jesus declared 2,000 years ago? Not just to make a living, not just to go in that surviving mode, but to reimagine life through your business, through your actions. Let me just introduce myself a little bit. Most of you don't know me as good as Colt. That's me and my wife, and I just realized that I'm wearing the same shirt. How embarrassing. But that was actually in Ottawa that I took that photo. This is my wife, Amy, and Amy was planning to come here, but she cannot make it because of not feeling too well. But we've been journeying life together in all areas, from ministry to living to business. We don't have kids. Yes, I said we don't have kids, but we have a lot of spiritual kids. Because I would say for 15 years in a big church, we mentor over 1,000 young adults. And young adult has been part of our passions. That's how we met. And 30 some years later on, we still focus on serving young adults. When you look at these young adults, yes, this is actually not young adults. That's my grandmother. My grandmother lived with us for about 20 years in her last journey of life. She found a way. She did not quite know English. Most of our young adults speak only English, but because they have Chinese background, that most of them actually can say the Chinese name and say a little bit of Chinese. And actually through that, my grandmother remember all of them, the prayer list, and pray for them, pray for their father, pray for the brother looking for a job, pray for the father in terms of they have not been come to Christ. So my grandmother left a big pile, that pile of notes on prayer items of these young people. So in 2020, we still celebrate my grandmother's last birthday. She was in a nursing home at the time. We celebrate her 112 years old birthday. You know what? In the very last few weeks that in her life, this is actually the time that I actually recognize how close, how special it is when you're so close to God. I can't even tell if she's talking to me or she was talking to God. Was it a prayer? Was it a conversation? It was all mixed together. But she showed me, she told me that when you pray, you need to pray like this. Well, surprisingly, the grandmother who was born in 1907 actually said that you need to pray for your business to do well, because that give you the capacity to be in God's kingdom. And my grandmother, my favorite last word in her entire life, the night before she passed, she whispered to my ear and she said, I am very happy. I wish that I would say the very same word when I promoted to heaven. That was my office. Some time ago, I have a design consultancy in downtown Toronto. I help, we do branding consultancy, where we do mobile app and web and helping clients to build community through digital platform. I don't do that right now. It's because I have something else to work on. Along the way, I also start 2 social enterprise. One of them is Clink Coffee. I met a guy, a young friend that was 27 years old, that he was on the street homeless for more than 20 years. And my wife and I journeyed with him, and I find it very challenging, rally the whole village to help a person to get better that way. And I wonder, what can we do to stop people going down that path? And I recognize that the people who come out from prisons, in general, the employment rate is 4.9%. That means 95% of them will not get jobs. So I work with a halfway house and create a nonprofit and create a different program. And our program, for more than a year when I was part of that, we're able to elevate and change the employment rate for those folks who came through us to have a 64% success rate. So we were the poster boy of the Correction Canada at the time, and this package got award on design, and it was posted on the airport for a year. That was actually my first experience of social enterprise. I did the second one. A few years later, I started with different friends and talk about what can we do to help more people to get jobs, to do better in life. And we got into one issue that we learned, is that recycling issues. We start to recycle something that nobody recycled in the entire world. Anybody know what VHS tapes is? Anyone still own some? Do you know that VHS tapes is not being recycled in the entire world? Do you know that in Ontario alone, that for the peak 5 years, we purchased 2.26 billion VHS tapes? Just in Ontario, just that 5 years, not including people who came from Far East at the time, brought in a lot of precious memory on tape. And what we did is we recognized, we found a way. Actually, we know what the problem was. Why they are not being recycled is because it does not make business sense. Because it takes a lot of labor to do that, and it's had to dismantle it. But we thought, wait, we were talking about 2 issues here. One is there are people who cannot find jobs. There are things that not being recycled and become the problem in the society in both cases. But what about if we bring them together? There can be a solution to each other. So we collect the data, as my wife there too, and we have a way that we sort all the material together. We did not go through the recycling program because they just not take that, and we align with manufacturer directly. So we have an expert on staff, so that one of our partners is an expert on recycling. So we ship all the plastic directly to manufacturer for renewable products. More than 80% of the VHS tape can be recycled. It just need labor to do it. And we're using that So hire people who has barrier to employment, people recover from mental health, people who has criminal record, people who have physical challenge, or refugees that they need the first opportunities. And we didn't realize it, but somebody nominated us. We end up got the Employer of the Year award in 1 year because of that. Here am I trying to tackle the 2.26 billion VHS tapes. We actually did have one contract working for Bell that we recycle most of the 3 million VHS tapes that they have. So today, I am not doing those anymore. I'm actually felt call and joined Tyndale University, and I am on a journey and helping entrepreneurs to see what you do can be missional, and how your work relates to God's kingdom, and how your work can change the mission field for the long run. So let's just talk about, the last scene we talked about Jesus. What was Jesus' vision? Well, when he talks about that, he declared that he was actually using the scripture that passed on to him. There was Isaiah 61. Well, this is very long. I'm not going to read that with you. But he looked at that scripture and he read half of them. He read the half of them until the part that they say, to proclaim the year of Lord's favor, and he saved the vengeance for the future. He gave us these few points. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty to those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of Lord's favor. Think about that. That was the declaration of Jesus' mission. How many of you are actually thinking that Jesus' mission is really to bring you to the kingdom of God, that you save? Your soul is safe. And that's everything that he cared about. But Jesus' mission is much, much broader here. It's good news. It's actually finding new way recover and proclaim. Actually, let's just look at it even broader. Let's look at what God's narrative on this. Well, if you look at John 3:17, it says, "For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." What do you think that the world means? The world in here, it says the cosmos. It refers to the original created order. Jesus was here to save the world back to the original creative order. That is his calling and mission. So if you look back to that, in the early day in Genesis 1, that we have that in the beginning God created heaven and earth. But then when you look at the very, very last, almost the last chapter, not quite, God is looking at the new heaven and new earth. So what is the difference between, what is the journey between the heaven and earth that God created in the very beginning to the very end, the new heaven and new earth? Jesus is here. Through him to reconcile, to renew, to restore to himself all things, whether things are on earth and things in heaven. That is Jesus' mission. That is how he declared everything that he's doing. So how does it relate to you? How does it relate to you? Here. In John 14, it said, very truly, I tell you, when Jesus actually about to leave, whoever believes in me will do the work that I have been doing. And they will do even greater things than these, because I'm going to the heaven. That was Jesus' vision, but there's a Jesus vision that passed on to you and to me. So let me just ask, what are we doing with the business right now? How are we living our life right now? How are we following Jesus' calling to do the very same vision that he called us to do? Well, when you think about vision, you need to start with the worldview. So let's just talk about worldview. What is worldview means? Like, worldview is almost like the lens, the glasses that you wear. Like, imagine if I have a blue glasses, the world is blue. So if I have a red glasses, then the world is red. It's simple, clear. So what is your worldview to this world? That matter, because it's your value, your belief, your narrative, your relationship, and your morals. Everything starts with your worldview. How do you see the world today? Because how you see the world today would dictate directly how you live your life and how you do business. There are 3 ways to work. I'm sorry to say, business, fundamentally exploitative. I mean, I'm been in business and I'm in front of the full room of business people. And let me just say that, why business is exploitative? Because in business school, you learn one thing, is how I can have the best margin for my own gain. How I can do everything that make me successful. And how do I measure successful? How do you measure the success of this business is better than that one? It's because this business earned the most money in the least time. If I can actually make $1 billion in 6 months versus another company who can make $2 million in 2 years. I mean, that's not bad, but that is how I measure the success. But if the only way that you measure success of business, if that's how we think, nothing else matters. Have you ever heard of the word say, I'm sorry, it's not personal, it's just business? Did we say that? Did we hear that and accept that? That's exploitative. It's a way that we use the world. I care about I win. I do not care about you lose. That's basically how we learn to do business. Let me just give you a little example here. There are 3 people, a guy, a woman, and a young girl, that they are on a fence, and there happened to be a parade, walk by, and they all want to see it. Like, this is such a great thing, but I just couldn't see it because there's a fence there. So the tall guy actually is pretty tall, that actually happened to own 3 boxes. So he actually climbed up, and he really happy to see the parade in a very comfortable way. And he's just happy because it doesn't really matter. I can see it very comfortable. But you see, if that picture is representing a lot of business. Because I win. I don't care if you lose. Well, business school actually thinking that, we need to do something better. So you heard that we need to do something like ethical way, right? So, But what is ethical? What does ethical means?
Honest.
Huh?
Honest.
Honest and
Just not breaking the law.
not breaking the law. Okay, that sounds great. And then anything else?
Standard.
Standard. Okay, you're driving something, and what else?
Win-win.
Win-win. Sure. Yes, think win-win. Anything else?
Moral.
Moral. Okay.
The golden rule.
The golden rules, whatever that is.
If you do something for me, I'll do it for you.
Okay. But ethical is actually inviting us to do things in the way that we're supposed to do. It's bringing us back to what we're supposed to do. We fall short, so let's bring back to that. What would that look like for that story? Well, the tall guy said, I have 3 boxes. Let us share. So that we all have boxes, so that we can all hopefully see it. Well, you heard me to say, hopefully see it. So, equal benefit. Does it really do it? I think now the woman actually can, now the woman can see it, but easy to get tired because that's how she see it. The girl's still not able to see it, even though there's a box. It doesn't quite solve her problem. What about we looking at ethical in a better way? Well, we look at people and say, well, we need to create equal outcome. So we're now looking at, okay, let's just get more boxes so that it's not about equally share, but it's finding a way to make sure everybody can see it. It's great. Now everybody can see it. At least what we are talking about is exactly what you said. It's thinking about each other. I win, you win. So that ethical help us to say, well, we need to find a way to help the world. Right? What would Jesus do? What would you imagine if Jesus came and do the ethical way? That I want you win, I also need to win. What's going to happen?
He'd say no.
Hmm?
He'd say no.
He say no?
He wants them to win. He would put himself last. He'd put the girl on his shoulders before he put down the box.
Thank you. The ethical way is just not the way that Jesus do things. Because he's doing a redemptive way. Now, redemptive way is a sacrifice, definitely sacrifice is part of that. But sacrifice in what way? If I just sacrifice so that I die, you live. Actually, that's what Jesus did. But Jesus is not saying that I die, you live. Then what about the other one? Jesus is actually saying that let's create a way that I sacrifice, that you all live. We all getting better. That's actually God's imagination. So he used the redemptive way to say, I need to love the world, that I sacrifice so that we all win. That is the innovations. Let's imagine. If somebody said, all of you entrepreneurs, you said, I can keep getting more boxes, I can shipload like 200 boxes so that we all can stand up the way that we want. You know, it's just like Lego, but then you're all standing. But let's just do some imagination. What can we do better to this world? What about we create a platform that we all can go up, the kid can see it, the guy, the girl can see it, but we can sit down. Maybe we can serve hamburger. Now we sell tickets. We sell food. Now we do other things that we can enjoy it in a different experience, different level. Many of you, I can see that you using the innovative way to look at your business to make the world a better place, that you're willing to do more for others. That is not necessary for your own win, but you care about other people. That is a starting point of the redemptive thinking. So 3 ways to work. The exploitative way is how we can use the world. The ethical way is how we can help the world. But if you love the world, then you have to use the redemptive way. Let me ask you this. Have you seen exploitation around you?
Every day.
Give us some example. Yes?
In a cell phone you hold in your hand, social media, it's exploiting everything you do. That's the highest, that's the high level. Yeah.
Thank you. Any examples? Any other examples? We need to call out the devil. So, so what is exploitative that you see in this world? Yes?
The capitalist system
Okay.
of the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer.
Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, Brenda.
Or purchases from Amazon. for climate impact and justice, for HR, like human rights issues for the employees. Like there's so many layers to that. And so we fuel that exploitation.
Well, the easy to return policy, if you know that, half of the Amazon purchase got returned. Think about landfill, think about the climate change, think about the other things. But it's because of our convenience. Anything else?
Contractors.
Contractors, what does it mean?
Contractors exploiting.
Okay. Sure. Anything else? Yes.
Fraud,
Fraud, okay.
especially amongst builders in Canada.
Okay.
The carpenters union, they experience a lot of fraud, and to them is exploitation.
To them it's business.
They're losing money from the people hiding.
Yes.
Instead of filing taxes, a lot of them evade taxation and stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Changing the narrative
Changing the narrative, okay.
to make others feel that they are being favored, to make them feel that they need what you are selling, and without it they cannot survive. Just recreating reality so that people can hear what they should not hear.
The concept of urgency for selling. Well, let me give you an example. Who here use Netflix? Who here you not using Netflix? Oh, okay. Well, we have some wonderful people here. Actually, I use Netflix. Let me tell you. At one point, one of the presidents of Netflix was talking about in the public events and say that, who do you think that he named the competitor of Netflix is? Who do you think the competitor of Netflix?
Amazon?
YouTube, Amazon,
Okay.
Prime, right? And
Apple.
huh?
Apple.
Apple, okay.
Disney.
Hmm?
Disney Plus.
I'm sorry.
Disney.
Disney, okay. This may surprise you. Huh? The president said the number one competitor is your sleep.
That's scary.
Think about the whole premise of the business design is focused on getting you not sleeping, to keep watching. That's the business model. So, with all these business, what kind of exploitative pressure that you are facing? Well, you don't do that, but other people do. You don't do that, but the system making you compressing and getting you to look at things differently. Did you feel that?
Yeah, living beyond your means, credit cards.
So when we actually think about the redemptive frame, there are three aspects to look at how you can interact with that. So there are leadership, there's strategy, there are operation. That's a three primary thing that any one building business need to look at. So from this is actually a tool that we created that based on major research from gigantic business case of $6 billion business with public trading 45 country, hiring 200,000 staff, and that company deep study on the case and also 200 small medium-sized cases and look at the trade, the understanding of what redemptive means. So we created this tool called Redemptive Business Canvas that we don't have time to go through that, and that's actually what we're going to talk about in the training. But I want to show you that in there, the focus of the three things. Leadership, how is your leadership today will serve through sacrifice? That's a reflection. When you do your business, you strategize your business. How is your business strategy will renew culture like Jesus wished you to do? And how's your operation bless people? Can you imagine, are you thinking about your business? Is your operation model is aimed to bless people? Are you doing that? So you're faith-driven entrepreneurs, I suppose, because you're here. Welcome. But do you feel entrepreneurs and faith-driven entrepreneurs are lonely? We wrote that a few years ago, that you bring your mission to work and your work to mission. You are striving to shape the culture in the light of God. But too often, you journey alone, feeling not understood. Do you feel that? I mean, some of you are so blessed to have community. I heard that you have gathering, you have groups and so on. But do you feel there's a challenge for you? In the beginning of our center, I talked to over 300 people, business leaders and so on. And there's three simple common things that everybody telling me the same patterns. Number one, they feel very lonely. Even though they are part of church, they just don't feel that it's easy or right to talk about the business in church or among the community. They probably don't understand if I talk about it. So loneliness is actually one of the common traits. Second, I don't even know how to talk about it. I want to do faith. I want to put business into it. I don't have framework. I don't have a language. I don't even know how to describe it. Lacking of language. Number three, I'm doing it, but I don't know who else doing it. I don't know how other people's doing it. I would love to have more story to inspire me, but I don't know where I can find it. I found a lot of people actually going down to US to find their stories. We have that here. We're just not curating it. So those three things are the starting point of our center. That is what we want to solve. Focus to do that. So let me just tell you about your unique superpower. Do you feel that you have superpower? We're not talking about Marvel here. I'm talking about you as faithful servant of the God's kingdom. You have the superpower. Let's just talk about the problem first. Do you feel that we have a problem that the gospel is underrepresented in the Canadian marketplace?
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Yes.
You agree? That's actually a problem. That's something that we need to deal with. Do you agree? You're one of them. Christian entrepreneurs are untapped source of influence.
Yes.
You haven't been activated. Underneath it, we have barriers that are preventing the activations of the influence. The three things that I talked about are barriers. The theology that we have sometimes a little narrow from the whole holistic biblical narrative is a problem. So if we able to find way to eliminate those barriers, and we activate, mobilize redemptive entrepreneurship, like we invite you guys to be one, to live it out, automatically that we will amplify gospel influence in the society in a big way. So I invite you to raise a hand if you have a business, you're a business owner or the nonprofit operator. Do you know how many of you in Canada? We estimate there are 630,000 Christian entrepreneurs in Canada. Every one of them has a big influence. And many of you know, some of you know, that your influence right now in your business can be even more influential than a lot of churches that you know. Your market, your narrative, your product service is making changes. You, as an entrepreneur, are a change agent. Why? Well, here, look at that. It said you define norms and standards. You instill new values through your business. You influence behaviors. You rewrite the rule of doing business. And you break through the conventional practice. Do you see that you're doing this? Yes.
Could to challenge this a little, are not praying people the change agents? So like, how do we go deeper into this that doesn't make this an egocentric or a hierarchy? But like, I read that and I'm kind of like, but is really?
Yes. This is actually what you're doing as an entrepreneur. Whether you are in whatever motive, that the practice of entrepreneurs, you creating new thing, you're actually looking at a gap and you're changing this. But whether you are focused on yourself or you focus on loving people, it's the same action. You are in a Chinese wisdom that you're riding a boat upstream. If you don't ride, it will just go the other way. So is your emotion, you are in this motion, but you're the one who dictate, sorry, I shouldn't use the word dictate. You're the one who make decision to bring Christ to the marketplace or take Christ out of the marketplace. I mean, you will do the two extreme. So the redemptive superpower in the marketplace is something like that. When you see brokenness, you want to step in. You want to step into it to see the brokenness that I can do something about it. You creating systems of blessings. You lead with sacrifice and innovating for others' gain. If that's your motive, you're on the journey of redemptive entrepreneurship.
My name is Alyssa Colt, and I am a part of the venture The Good Neighborhood. One thing in particular that just stood out to me is the impact of putting people first in every aspect of business, whether that's your employees or just the customers that you're interacting with, and the power of investment in the culture and creating healthy culture internally that then flows out externally. And that is the redemptive frame. It's investing well in people and putting others before yourself and serving those that are in your organization.
Don't you love to see young entrepreneurs to have that goal? To say, I am building a business for others. I am building a business to shape culture. How many of you heard that we going downhill, the culture is terrible, the things that we see, it's just broken, it's just getting darker and darker, and we as a Christian, we just complain. We just complain, we just condemn, and eventually we consume. How many of us finding a way to make changes, to create new culture that honor Jesus in the society? Do you recognize that you have some superpowers? So I want to do one quick thing. Just Colt did that before. So just turn to the neighbor and just say something to suggest where can you see your redemptive role and potential as a change agents right now. You might not necessarily have that right now, but you might doing it already. But think about one thing that you can be the change agent to see you have a redemptive role. Can you just do that quickly? You know, I give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm just trying to reach it. Well, it's just like me, like, I'm just like
So 1 more minute. Okay.
That's right.
All right. Thank you for spending time. I hope that the framework opens some imagination for you, so that you can see more things that is God calling you. So collectively, we have a mission. I want to show you this. I'm part of the Lausanne movement, and last year I joined a few 190 leaders from Canada to join in Korea the global conference. But before that, they did a call and talk about the state of the Great Commission. So this chart, I want to show you the result. So this chart that they were presenting, on the left side of vertical is the percentage of Christian in the entire world. Okay, so vertically, there's a percentage of Christian in the entire world. The x-axis is starting from 1990 to now and projection to 2040. So it's 100 years. So let me ask you, guess, in that 100 year, what will be the chart of the percentage of Christian in the entire world look like in the last 100 years?
Going down.
Would that be going down? Would that be going up? Would that be like a stock market going up and down? What do you guess? Yes? Well, you raised a hand, did you?
I think it's going up, to be honest with you. I think that in the last days, people are going to become Christians, people are going to become born again more than before, and I think that tradition is going down. And like Holy Spirit filled believers are going to fill the earth.
Well, one very promising part is the global south. The Christian community in Africa are growing tremendously in the last little while, and I would say that 80% of the Christian community now is in global south. Yes, that is a lot of movement. We've gone through war, Second World War. We've gone through the major change of the Bible translation, and we've gone through the technology change and the migration, the diaspora, and all of those. This is the result. In 100 years, Christian populations with population growth and all of those, we magically maintain about 31 to 33, 34% range in 100 years and project somewhat similar. The question is, what can we do different to change the line? What has not been doing and focusing? It's not about doing more. It's how can we do gospel in a more strategic way? I want to make a suggestions. You are the missing part of it. In Canada, there are 20,000 churches only. It's only 20,000 churches in Canada. But you have 630,000 individuals that form agency level impact. How much more gospel impact we can do in Canada if all of you in this room be redemptive entrepreneurship, to think about your work is offered to God, to think of, to bless others, to make those changes. I'm pretty sure that we will change that. Just think about the proportion. 20,000 churches versus 630,000 entrepreneurs. The future of the world is already here. God showed us his pattern of creative restoration through sacrifice to redeem all things. He's calling us to follow. Why I say it's already here? Because resurrection of Jesus is already proven, not the past, but the future. We are claiming that. That's the future of the world. But the future of the culture, it depends largely on the worldview of the business leader. Many of them in this room. What you decide to build, especially in the stage of rapid change. Your decision and other business people's decision will change the culture of tomorrow. The culture that we live today did not change because of church. Mostly depends on the entrepreneurs. When Steve Jobs take up the phone, he changed the world. When Mark Zuckerberg creates social media, when Amazon come out, when many people, Elon Musk and many others, they are the one who shaping your culture, your convenience, your lifestyle. Why are we not bring Jesus to the forefront of the culture? Why can't be the culture reflect Jesus with love, with care, with imagination? Let's talk about the last part, the future of the church. The future of the church, both public witness and the ability to engage the next generation, depends largely on the praxis, the faith in actions of Christ followers like you. If you look back to the younger generations, many of you just so experienced, you've gone through life. When you look back, the people behind you are looking at you. What you do, what they see, will turn into the church in the future. Because they're following you. They're learning from you. So, to summarize, entrepreneurship is a practical application of prophetic imagination in the marketplace. It's a big word. But do you know that you actually have that power, that calling, to be the prophetic imaginations? You bring your imaginations with God's kingdom. Redemptive entrepreneurship, the way that we define in here in Canada, is we're building profitable businesses that we want you to build profitable businesses. But that with the focus of serving the community to renew culture and bless people, restoring the society to the intended state. Well, we're calling back to Genesis 1. That's the intended state. You are part of that. You are called to do that. In order to do that, you need to have profitable business. Otherwise, you can't sustain. You can't scale. You cannot make better impact. So don't think that earning money is guilty. Don't think that that's so secular. It is secular or not secular. It depends on your mindset, your worldview. your intention of doing business. So when you come in, you get that black cards. That's the statement. I want you to invite you to go back and put that, remind yourself to have that business that can scale, make impact, and be visional. We don't have time, but I just want to ask you, think about it. Do you feel that you need to reframe your mindset? Is anything surprised you today? Maybe just a boring thing, same old thing.
VHS.
I took the actions of VHS. What kind of action that you can do?
Sleep.
Oh, sleep, sure. So let's just summarize it. Framing redemptive entrepreneurship, you need to do a few things. You need to think through your mindset. Your worldview is so important, it guides you. But you also need to understand individual flourishing. What's a pathway of flourishing? How flourishing means. And is flourishing just mean happiness? Or is more than that? What is flourishing means to Jesus? And that translates to you. Number 3 is how do you build your business that is redemptive? So these are the 3 things that we talked about at the center. So I talked about the canvas. That is a 1-page that helps you to look at all the necessary box and action that you need to focus on and check marks so that you can look at, evaluate your business with a redemptive lens. And to measure that in 3 ways: financial, sustainability, redemptive impact, and individual flourishing. So the canvas is a multi-purpose tool. It checks your overall business health. It is a transformation mapping from your current state to the desired state. It's a strategic planning. It gives you the priority of the area that you want to focus on. It's a leadership and self-reflection, seeing where you have been spending your time or where you can spend time better. It creates a universal language, and so that you can actually talk to each other and build community that way. So we ran a program called Redemptive Business Sprints early in the year. So I just want to give you a 1-minute video to see what people say.
I believe a gathering like this is very important and very valuable, particularly for redemptive entrepreneurs. Having a redemptive framework really helps see the whole picture of everything that we want to accomplish in a structured way.
Inspiring to hear how other business people are integrating their faith in their businesses.
I wish I could dial back 20 years and have this when I was starting my business.
I feel more energized and more like I have a strategic vision for the future for my business. It's been really, really good.
So you get both best-in-class strategies, tools, and also spiritual methodologies. It far exceeded my expectations. So we run that roughly once a year. So I don't even know when is the next time that I can invite you to go, but we want to do something different. So we put these learning together in 2 days in a unique way. We call Redemptive Business Studio, that you don't have to leave home. You can do that during the daytime, and you can come home at night to your family. But in 2 days, we bring all the learning, the structures, and the reflections and the prototyping, all of these together in 2 days. And it's right here in Ottawa, that is in the 45 Rideau Street. That is actually pretty close to the Parliament Hill. And that's actually where we're gonna meet in about 20 days. So I will let Johan and Colt talk about that. I think they're better salesmen than me. I'm not trying to sell. I'm just trying to say, almost everyone that gone through this program not only loved it, all the people that you saw there, they went back to the team the next week and start reimagining the business. And some of the team members are non-Christians, and they said, this is so good that I want to do that. So I want to invite you to consider to join us for that 2 days. It's a big investment of 2 days, I know, from your regular daytime, but it will open your eyes and give you a format that you can actually work on for a very long time and take you to the higher calling of your business beyond just doing business. So this is actually redemptivestudio.ca.
Thank you very much, Philip. That was inspiring as always.